Very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Nishchal Joshpuria and I head the M&A practice at Nishchal Associates. So these are some of the key laws which one needs to be aware of while doing a cross-border M&A. And when I say cross-border M&A, it covers both an Indian company acquiring a foreign company or vice versa, a foreign company acquiring an Indian company. So which are some of the most important laws which one needs to take care of while structuring a transaction? Income tax, which we all know is getting more and more critical day by day because of the aggressiveness of the Indian tax authorities. For any inflow of foreign exchange or outflow of foreign exchange, there are certain exchange control restrictions which one needs to be aware of. In case of private equity buyout transactions, the FII, FACI regime also becomes very critical because certain things you can do through what you can do through FII regime, you cannot do through FACI regime. Arbitration, again, no one likes to go through this arbitration or litigation process, but again, very important component of our merger and acquisition process. Court-approved processes, merger, where two companies can be merged into one, and demerger, where one company can be demerged into two companies. Similarly, on acquisitions, it can be in the form of an asset purchase, where you just buy the assets from another company, or it could be in the form of a stock purchase, where you buy the shares of that company. Within asset purchase, again, you can have a slump sale, which is the transfer of the entire business, as against an itemized sale where you can cherry pick the assets. So in transfer of entire business, you take the assets and liabilities of a particular division of a company, like we saw Piramal selling its division to Abbott. That was a business transfer or slump sale. Whereas in itemized sale, you can cherry pick the assets and leave out the liabilities. Now, when you take a decision on what to acquire, or you decide to acquire, you are liking a target, then these are some of the questions one needs to ask and discuss internally. The first one is, what should you acquire, assets or shares? This is becoming extremely important given the fact that recently a lot of transactions have been structured as business transfer or slump sale as compared to share acquisition, because of the benefits which the asset acquisition gives us compared to share acquisition. If you don't want to take up the liabilities of the target company, you may just do an asset acquisition where you cherry pick the assets. In case of listed companies, more and more slump sale or business transfers are happening to avoid the takeover code issues, or even the delisting guidelines. The delisting is so difficult in India right now that practically there is hardly any company which is actually able to delist with the 90% threshold set by SEBI. So what should you acquire? And the same applies when you are going outside the country. If you are acquiring a foreign company, you don't know the laws of that country, and you need to be cautious because share acquisition may be beneficial in some countries, asset acquisition may be beneficial in other countries. Second is, how should you acquire it? So would you acquire it directly, or you would want to use a holding company in between? And here what becomes extremely critical is the use of the tax treaty which that intermediate company has with the target country's jurisdiction. Everybody talks about tax treaties, but there is hardly anybody who is talking about the bilateral investment treaty, which is slowly becoming so important. What tax treaty does is that it talks about it protects your income in the foreign country. Bilateral investment treaties protect your investments in the foreign country. So your capital, how protected it is, becomes very critical, especially in situations where some of the countries may expropriate your plant. So just to give you an example, Holcim had set up its cement plant in Venezuela, and the Venezuelan government expropriated the plant of Holcim. Now only because Holcim had invested through a jurisdiction which had a bilateral investment treaty with Venezuela, the government of that country and Venezuelan government entered into negotiations, and finally they were able to pull out the plant from the government. So unless and until you think about all these issues, not only on tax side but also on protection of your investment, it becomes difficult in such type of situation which you will never envisage at the time of doing the deal. Which regime will be used? This is specifically for buyout transaction, FDI, FII or FSI. Like I said, especially for private equity funds, Uh, it's interesting, like if you have an FII license, you can do secondary purchase of listed shares on the floor of the exchange, which an FDI or an FECI license cannot. FDI anyways you don't need license, but an FECI license cannot help you to do that. So a mix of all three regimes, if it is used by a private equity investor, then it's easy to structure the deal for them. How will you pay for it? Again, tax efficient funding, extremely critical. What is the instrument you will use to invest in India, or if you are acquiring a foreign company outside India? Globally, there are certain instruments, hybrid instruments, which are very common, where in the payer's country it is considered as interest, and the same income is considered as dividend in the recipient's country. So, how do you arbitrage such type of differences in the instruments between two countries becomes extremely critical to reduce your effective group tax cost. How will you use the profits? Again, the manner of deriving the income from the target company. You may want to take it in the form of dividends, you may want to take it in the form of capital gains, or in the form of royalty, management fee, depends on what's the strategy. And what if things don't work out? It's very critical. You are doing a deal today, but after few months you may want to exit from the deal. So is your structure robust enough to give you an exit without any hurdles? That becomes very critical. Now, the first stage typically after the term sheet is signed is the due diligence of our target company. Now, why due diligence is so important?